Hey, this time for AI tools for modding, we got a big one. We got ChatGPT. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I've always been a creative in my life. Hell, I even called myself a musician once.
There was love inside the basement where that girl used to lie.
So another thing about me is I have a very short attention span. And if you're anything like me, it's always been hard to get past a short story or a short mod or stick with a long mod, anything like that, just because it really takes a lot of energy for us to continually keep focus on one thing. So ChatGPT is really useful for people like us, where we can go ahead and explore with ChatGPT, asking the right questions to open up a story that is in our head, but we've always had a problem getting out on paper. So for this experiment, we're just going to do a little Starfield fan fiction. Now, I know we don't have much information on Starfield yet, but that's never stopped any fan fiction anywhere. So, we're also going to keep two things in mind. We're going to figure out how to refine our questions, and we're also going to figure out our characters' desires, their quirks, their perks. These are the things that are going to help us drive our story. So questions. Questions are very important for all stories, not just ChatGPT. It's how we build our lore. We ask a question like, is our world in a fantasy realm? And you go, yes, okay. What era or style do I want to set this in? You go, okay, Edo period Japan. The more questions you ask and the more answers you accumulate. They just go hand in hand. Now that we have ChatGPT, our question refinement becomes even more important. Second, how we're going to develop our stories by dossiers. We're going to make really good characters, and those characters are going to drive our story. It may seem backwards to some, but I find there's more inspiration when I have the characters, because if I know their wants and desires and their own personal battles, all I need to do is have them cross paths, and the story will develop itself. Now, of course, we're going to have to refine with an overarching purpose. For this, I'm not going to touch on that. I think that kind of refinement will come down the line as our stories become more nuanced and we really want to make a point known. So for now, let's keep it simple and just run with those two. So here's the first prompt I have. I want to write a story based on the Bethesda game Starfield universe. We will start by creating dossiers on the main characters involved in our story. Everything written needs to stay within the bounds of our story and continue to build on the previous chapter. The main factions are Freestar Collective, a faction that believes in personal freedom, United Colonies, a faction that believes in order and laws, and the Crimson Fleet, a faction of space pirates. Type blank if you understand. Do not start writing anything. The reason we don't want it writing anything right now is because it's going to get carried away. It could just start writing the story before we even tell it what we want. So putting in all the information you want, the framework you want, and then letting it tell you that it understands but not writing anything else is a great way to get all the information you want to train the ChatGPT in the story that you're heading. Okay? So now here's the prompt for the character. I want you to write a dossier about a basic descriptor who has a unique past that affects their perspective on the world around them. Describe their personality in detail and their physical appearance. Give them a unique ability and a phobia. Explain where they are currently working and what they desire in the future. Give them a quirk that adds interest to their character. Now, this is what I did for the protagonist. I want you to write a dossier about the main protagonist who has a unique past that affects their perspective on the world around them. Describe their personality in detail and their physical appearance. Give this character a unique quirk and a dark secret. The protagonist's current profession is a janitor, and they yearn for adventure. And then we got the antagonist. I want you to write a dossier about the main antagonist who has a unique past that affects their perspective on the world around them. Describe their personality in detail and their physical appearance. Give this character a unique quirk and a secret ability. So the framework for all the characters are about the same. I just take a more hands-on approach to my protagonist and antagonist to give them a little bit of a unique character that I want to start them with. And then I'll let the AI take the rest from there. So now we're going to create the outline of our story. I want you to create a 20 chapter outline involving all the characters you have written dossiers on with blank as the main character. Create a slow burning story that has well paced foreshadowing and a climactic end that does not feel overly typical to the sci fi genre. So I know the wording may not sound very fluid, but it's kind of learning to ask this thing the right questions to get the answers we want. This is how I've experimented with it, and I've gotten decent results with it. Basically, the keys are you want to make sure ChatGPT knows that you want it to be slow burning. You don't want a fast story because it will. It really wants to rush to the end, and it'll try to make every chapter over the top, almost cheesy. So this is how I initially avoid it. And then there's ways down the road, because you're going to run into it, where you can have ChatGPT rewrite the ending of each chapter so that it feels a little more open-ended opposed to an end of that story. So we're going to start with that for now. So this section I do not use in this current story, but it is some options to put before you start putting in the chapters. You can do a little bit more lore building. You can have conversations between characters or just one character having more conversations so that ChatGPT learns a little bit more about how this character behaves and really the personality of the character. So I'll just read this out. This next section happens many years before our current story and holds no relevance to our 20 chapter story. I want you to create a dialogue between character and a coworker that displays character, unique style of conversation, and her desire for the future. Develop the conversation slowly, only focusing on character development, not story progression. I want you to show the character's personality, not tell it. Show the character's thoughts between dialogue that shows their doubts and desires. Keep the dialogue within the Starfield universe. I also have, I want a dossier on a planet in the sci-fi universe that is very interesting and has some hidden secrets. I want a dossier of a type planet in this sci-fi universe that is very generic. Okay, so just a couple things on this. This first paragraph, you're going to rework it to however you want to approach and what scenario you want to put your character in to kind of get a feel for how ChatGPT will write them out. This is just how I did it for this example. And the interesting thing about when I was trying to do sci-fi planets, unless I did that last one where I said I want a dossier of a type of planet, if I give a type of planet, it will tend to write a better description. Even if I say generic, it will still tend to write a better planet out than if I did a unique planet, because it's always about ancient alien artifacts. I did it 20 times, and every time it had some lost alien civilization on this planet. And to avoid that, I did that last prompt. So it's something to be aware of, and you're gonna see it pop up all the time. It's kind of funny. It got a little annoying though. And here it is, the last part is our chapter framework. Write chapter 1 from the outline. Use descriptive language and sensory details to create a vivid atmosphere. Do not rush the story development and take your time writing the nuanced detail in this chapter. You should include reflection and internal monologues to provide more context and insight into the character's personality. The chapter should be approximately 4,000 to 6,000 words and should end at a moment of realization or decision that will impact the future actions in the story. That last sentence can still be workshopped. As I said, I haven't had great success with the endings for how ChatGPT writes the story, but I can get it to a closer framework once I get an idea where it lands with the chapter. So now let's go into the prompts and see how it actually works. All right, so there's the first prompt that we went over. And as you see, it just drops ... understood. Let's start creating the character dossiers for your Starfield story. I don't know why it wrote after I told it not to, but maybe that's signs that the AI is taking over. And so the first prompt, I added in a Freestar Collective pilot. And so this is the dossier I got. Lyrian Zephyr, age 32, female, Freestar Collective, occupation pilot. Physical appearance. Larian stands at 5'8" with a lithe, athletic build. Her short blonde hair is often styled in a messy bun or pulled back in a braid. She has piercing green eyes and a sharp, angular jawline. Her skin is lightly tanned from years spent under the stars. Personality. Larian is a free spirit who values personal freedoms above all else. She is quick-witted, fiercely independent, and has a rebellious streak. Her upbringing as a member of a nomadic tribe of space gypsies has instilled in her a deep respect for the stars and desires for exploration. However, she is also haunted by her past and can be guarded and defensive around others. Unique ability. Larian has a unique ability to navigate through the asteroid fields and other treacherous space environments with ease. She possesses an innate sense of spatial awareness that allows her to predict and avoid obstacles with incredible precision. Phobia. Larian has a phobia of being trapped in small spaces. Her fear stems from a traumatic experience during her childhood, when she was accidentally locked in a cargo hold for several hours. Current occupation. Larian is currently working as a pilot for the Freestar Collective, ferrying cargo and passengers across the galaxy. Desires. Larian's ultimate desire is to own her own ship and become a freelance explorer. She dreams of discovering new worlds and making a name for herself as a skilled pilot. Quirk. Larian has a habit of humming to herself whenever she's nervous or anxious. Her tune of choice is an old space shanty her grandmother used to sing to her as a child. So I think you can already see there's some really unique things about this character, which should give us a bunch of inspiration about where we can write her in and where we would want her in our story. It really comes up with some beautiful lines I didn't even think about. One of them was her skin is lightly tanned from years spent under the stars. I mean, if we're a spacefaring civilization, it's not just our sun. So you can be getting tanned from stars across the galaxy. It's almost a little poetic. I'm going to avoid reading these other characters for now. I'm going to make another account. I'll leave a link down below where I'll just read these chapters and stories and just be more of a creative channel. This one, I just want to kind of show you what it does and how it can work for modding. So I didn't like the phobia that Riven Blackwood got. And the phobia originally was Riven has a phobia of being confined or trapped. So I didn't want another phobia of claustrophobia, basically. So I said, rewrite the phobia. And it wrote everything the same except it changed the phobia, saying Riven has a phobia of drowning. Their fear stems from a traumatic experience during their childhood when they were trapped in a sinking ship. Dramatic, maybe, but it is a different phobia and it could give us some ideas. Another thing to keep in mind, this is more about the lore building. This isn't necessarily going to be in our story or hold any relevance unless we want it to. These quirks, these phobias are just for our own use in creating ideas, for asking better questions. So here's Gabriel, our main protagonist. Everything we use is pretty much the same, except we have his dark secret. Gabriel has a dark secret that he has never shared with anyone. When he was younger, he accidentally caused a fire that resulted in the death of his younger sister. He has carried this guilt with him ever since, and it shaped his worldview and sense of purpose. I thought that was pretty dark. Like, as far as dark secrets go, that definitely gives a huge chip on the shoulder. I kind of like it. It definitely can lead to some interesting ideas just from that angle. And if we don't forget it, we can definitely insert it somewhere appropriate in our stories. The rest of it is the same. I didn't like his physical appearance, so I did the same thing. I said, change his physical appearance, and it gave me a whole new appearance. Everything else is the same. So this is important to keep track of. You want to make sure you get everything you want from that moment on, because it's hard to correct it later on in the story. You want, if it doesn't fit what you want in the future, try to change it at that prompt. Otherwise, it gets really messy really quick. So just block every section, completely get it where you want it, and then move on. I think I got it backwards, but here's our antagonist. She is all the same, except for her secret ability. Dr. Decker possesses a unique ability to manipulate the minds of others. She can implant false memories, alter perceptions, and even erase memories entirely. Dr. Decker keeps this ability a closely guarded secret and only uses it when she deems it necessary. So, another thing to note is that if you write antagonist and protagonist, it will kind of frame how it writes the rest of that character's description. So even though she is in the United Colonies, not necessarily the bad guys that we would stereotypically make for it, her personality and kind of everything about her shows that she has many things that can lead her down a darker path. So I like that. It's not overtly villainous, no twirling mustache. Okay, so now here we are to the 20 chapter outline. And this is what it comes up with. Chapter 1. Gabriel Vega is introduced as a janitor at the United Colonies research facility. He is unsatisfied with his mundane job and longs for adventure. Chapter 2. Gabriel overhears Dr. Amelia Decker talking about a secret project in the works at the facility. He becomes curious and decides to investigate. Chapter 3. Riven Blackwood and her crew of Freestar Collective rebels hijacked a United Colonies transport ship. They discover that the ship is carrying a dangerous weapon and decide to keep it out of the wrong hands. Chapter 4. Officer Nathaniel Stone investigates the hijacking of the transport ship and crosses paths with Riven's crew. He becomes determined to bring them to justice. Chapter 5. Gabriel snoops around the research facility and discovers the secret project, a powerful AI designed to control the galaxy. He realizes that the project must be stopped. Chapter 6. The Crimson Fleet pirates, led by Captain Finnegan, launched an attack on the United Colonies trade station. They steal a valuable piece of technology and make their escape. Chapter 7. Gabriel seeks out Riven's help in stopping the AI project. They form an unlikely alliance. Chapter 8. Officer Stone closes in on Riven's crew and the Freestar Collective. A tense standoff ensues. Chapter 9. Dr. Decker becomes aware of Gabriel's snooping and orders his capture. Chapter 11. Officer Stone discovers Dr. Decker's secret ability and is horrified with the lengths she is willing to go to maintain order. Chapter 12. The Crimson Fleet offers to sell the stolen technology to the Freestar Collective. Chapter 13. Gabriel and Riven's crew succeed in sabotaging the AI project, but are caught by Dr. Decker. Chapter 14. The United Colonies, Freestar Collective, and Crimson Fleet converge in a final battle over the fate of the galaxy. Chapter 15. Officer Stone defects from the United Colonies and joins Riven's crew. He reveals Dr. Decker's secret ability. Chapter 16. Gabriel and Dr. Decker engage in a battle of wits as he tries to thwart her plans. Chapter 17. The Crimson Fleet reveals their true intentions for the stolen technology. Chapter 18. Riven sacrifices herself to save Gabriel and the galaxy. Chapter 19. Gabriel and the Officer Stone confront Dr. Decker in a final showdown. Chapter 20. The fate of the galaxy is decided as Gabriel and Officer Stone must stop Dr. Decker and the Crimson Fleet from unleashing destruction on a massive scale. So you can see some of the chapters are pretty interesting, others maybe a little cheesier, kind of a trope. But we can go back and say rewrite chapter 14, or we can just regenerate the whole response and have it do it again. We can do that as many times as we want. We just want to have a solid structure before we continue onward. I'm just going to leave it as it is, since this is an example. Let's go ahead and check out our first chapter with our prompt that we already saw. Chapter 1. The Janitor. Gabriel Vega wiped his sweaty brow with the back of his hand as he trudged down the dimly lit hallway, pushing his cleaning cart along. He had been working as a janitor on the United Colonies space station for the past 5 years, and he was tired of the monotony, tired of the ungrateful passengers, tired of being stuck in this boring job with no way out. He paused outside one of the station's viewing decks and peered inside. Marveling at the stars beyond the thick glass panes, he wondered what it would be like to explore the vast expanse of space, to fly through the stars and discover new worlds. But those were just fantasies, things that would never come to fruition for someone like him, a lowly janitor with no prospects for a better future. As he resumed his journey down the hall, his thoughts were interrupted by the sound of raised voices coming from around the corner. He hesitated, wondering if he should investigate, but then decided it was probably just another argument between passengers. But as he rounded the corner, he was met with a scene that left him frozen in place. A group of heavily armed individuals dressed in black and red stood in the middle of the hallway, their weapons trained on a lone figure in a United Colonies officer's uniform. Gabriel recognized the officer as Captain Alana Gray, a woman he had seen around the station many times before. She was known for her strict adherence to the rules and her unwavering loyalty to the United Colonies, but now she looked small and vulnerable, surrounded by the menacing figures. One of the pirates stepped forward, a smirk on his face. "Well, well," his voice dripping with malice. "What do we have here?" Alana didn't answer, her jaw set in determination, but Gabriel could see the fear in her eyes, and he felt a surge of anger and protectiveness towards her. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Please, let her go," he said, his voice surprisingly steady. "She hasn't done anything wrong." The pirate turned his attention to Gabriel, his expression incredulous. "And who might you be?" "I'm just a janitor," Gabriel said, trying to keep the tremble out of his voice. "I don't want any trouble." The pirate laughed, a cruel sound. "You don't want any trouble? Well, that's too bad, because you got yourself involved in something way over your head." Gabriel tensed, bracing himself for an attack, but then something unexpected happened. The pirate turned to his comrades, a wicked gleam in his eyes. "Let's leave them," he said. "We've got what we came for." The pirate's voice almost seemed forced. The other pirates reluctantly lowered their weapons and began to back away, disappearing into the shadows. Gabriel watched them go, his heart pounding with relief and confusion. He turned to Alana, who was still frozen in place. "Are you all right?" his concern genuine. Alana nodded, her expression still guarded. "Thank you," she said, her voice tight. You didn't have to do that." Gabriel shrugged, trying to play it cool. It was nothing. I was just doing my job." Gabriel shifted his weight from one foot to the other, suddenly feeling self-conscious under Alana's scrutiny. He knew he had done the right thing by intervening, but her suspicious demeanor made him feel as though he had overstepped his bounds. Alana took a step closer to Gabriel, her eyes scanning his face. "You're not like the other janitors," she said, her tone suspicious. "What's your story, Vega?" Gabriel hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. He'd always been a private person, preferring to keep his personal life separate from his work. But there was something about Alana that made him want to open up to her, to share his dreams and aspirations. "I'm just a guy trying to make a living," he said, his voice soft. "I never thought I'd end up as a janitor, but it pays the bills." Alana raised an eyebrow. "You're too smart for this job," she said. "What are you after?" Gabriel sighed, feeling the weight of his unfulfilled ambitions pressing down on him. "I want more," he admitted. "I want to see the stars, explore new worlds, be part of something bigger than myself." Alana studied him for a moment before nodding thoughtfully. "I understand that feeling," she said. "I used to feel the same way, but I've learned that there are some things that are worth more than adventure and excitement." Gabriel furrowed his brow, intrigued. "Like what?" "Like making a difference," Alana replied. "Like fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. Like standing up to people like Riven Blackwood." Gabriel's eyes widened. "You know about her?" Alana nodded grimly. "Everyone in the Crimson Fleet knows about her," she said. "She's a monster, Vega. A ruthless killer who stops at nothing to get what she wants." Gabriel shuddered, imagining the kind of person who could command such fear and respect. "What can we do to stop her?" "That's what we're here to figure out," Alana said, her voice firm. "But we can't do it alone. We need all the help we can get." Gabriel nodded, feeling a sense of purpose stirring within him. For the first time in a long time, he felt as though he was part of something important. something that could change the course of history. I'm with you, he said, his voice steady. Whatever it takes. So there's a lot to like in this first chapter. My favorite part about this is that they took Alana's ability that we saw before, where she's able to subtly control people's thoughts and what they think. And you can see it with the pirates when they just leave, or how he feels like he should just open up to her about his thoughts and dreams. And when she starts saying, hey, the Crimson Fleet are bad, we need help, how he's getting pulled into it. So they did a really nice, subtle job of showing and not telling. So hopefully this gives you some ideas of the power that you can use this for writing a really decent story. Now, the longer the story gets and the more chapters, you're going to have to be very vigilant about it veering off topic or even changing the basic identities of the characters that are already created. But as long as you take it chunk by chunk and you thoroughly read through it and make sure that it follows the story that you had in mind and is following the framework, you can get an amazing story out way quicker than we ever could before. Hey, I hope this helps you guys write your next story, your next mod, whatever creative endeavor you have, because I believe you can extrapolate this stuff to so many other aspects of art. If you have any other AI tools or you like this kind of thing and you want to hear more about this story, I'm going to leave a link down below to another channel of mine that I'm just going to basically post me reading these chapters and other stories I create, and probably tutorials for when the CK2 comes out and other more freeform things. I want to keep this channel, to modding, Starfield, mod authors, Bethesda game, that type of thing. Thank you guys again so much. Appreciate you. Stay safe and mod reckless.